Hey guys. Recently, I was scrolling through everyone's favorite app, TikTok, when I came across this video, which kind of sent me down a rabbit hole, and I want to talk about it. This particular video didn't really catch my eye, so I just kind of scrolled on. But a day or two later, I received another video on my TikTok feed about Enron appointing a new CEO. His name is Connor Gatos. And this was done after roughly 20 years of being kind of out of business. The very first thought I had on this CEO was that he seemed really young. And even though I didn't know a lot about Enron, the thing I did know about Enron is that they went out of business for shady business practices when I was really young. So this guy, being how young he is, he seems way too young to be heading up such a company. But I kind of just assumed that he was a Nepo hire and continued on. Ultimately, after seeing both these videos, I just kind of scrolled on because I didn't really know what Enron was. I didn't really know why this mattered. And I also didn't really care that some company was appointing a new CEO. This probably should have been the first red flag for me wondering why I'm being served this kind of content, because traditionally I don't really hear about this kind of thing. Most companies will change who their C-suite executives are frequently, and I would never really hear about CEOs changing at a company. Then a few days later, another piece of media came across my timeline in the form of the CEO being hit with a pie. I didn't really know what this was. I thought it was just, probably a joke. This is kind of where I started to feel like this is probably something that is satirical, but honestly, I didn't care, so I didn't look into it. I just kind of took it at face value and continued on. But then the next day, I was shown this video from Enron.
We have harnessed the power of the atom. Ladies and gentlemen, the Enron egg.
Which really piqued my attention. I really wanted to know what the angle was and why this video was made. And this kind of is what started my dive into learning about Enron, both their history and the current company. I'm just going to give a little bit of background information about Enron as they used to be before they became a defunct company, because I know I didn't really know much about Enron. And so I'm just going to kind of assume you guys don't either and give you a little bit of a background so we can better frame my thoughts near the end of the video. The only thing I knew about Enron going into this video and kind of doing a little bit of research is that their logo kind of looks a lot like the Evil Corp logo in Mr. Robot, which during my investigation, I would find out is exactly what the creator of Mr. Robot, Sam Esmail, wanted people to think, not just because of what Enron had done and kind of the kind of company and notoriety they had, but also at that point, spoiler alert, Enron wasn't a company. They were completely wiped off the face of the planet at that point. And so, in his words, it's not like they can sue me. So, that is actually why this Enron logo is the same logo used in Mr. Robot. That being aside, that was the only thing I knew about Enron going into making this video. Enron, as it was originally back in the early 2000s, late 1990s, was a energy company, but also a gas company and a paper company and an investment and trading firm. They kind of had their hands in a lot of cookie jars. Initially, when they first were created as a company, they dealt in gas, energy, paper, and pulp. Don't ask me how those two disjoint fields were incorporated under one company, because I really have no idea. They were founded in the late 80s when two smaller Texan power companies kind of merged and incorporated under the name Enron. This began their ascent to the top of the food chain of power companies. They started as a smaller Texas power company, but eventually they worked their way to the top of the energy food chain in that region of the US, becoming almost a 30,000 employee company making $1.1 billion of revenue in the year of 2001. Although what proceeded with Enron in the next few years would kind of call into question whether or not that $1.1 billion revenue claim in 2001 was true. Spoiler alert, it was a lie. They were in red the whole time. As mentioned before, they did a little bit of everything, but specifically in the sector of power, they started in Texas, but then eventually expanded out. And they were also a really big player in the California and Oregon power market in the 90s. And they actually, through their manipulation of the energy market, caused the California energy crisis. They then also branched out into other forms of business that were outside of the energy and power making sector. They branched into paper making, which again is so surprising to me. I have no idea how you go from supplying energy to being a paper maker, but they also did data management as well as storage. And eventually they also turned into an investment and trading firm. So yeah, they were kind of a really big company that had a lot of hands and a lot of cookie jars and were doing a lot of different stuff. This kind of might slightly explain how they pulled off the scheme that they did for 16 years. From what the world could see, as well as from what most of their employees could see out of the 30,000, Enron was a thriving company. They peaked at number 7 on the Fortune 500 list. But in 2001, their industrious scheme and their large company would kind of come crashing down. In 2001, a whistleblower came out and they exposed the company for fudging the books and lying about their numbers for pretty much the entire time that they were in business. It began with a business practice of making large special purpose entities that would allow them to take their toxic assets and pretty much anything that would sit on the company's books and look like something that would be a debt or look bad on their financial statements. And they could take those toxic assets and move them off onto those special interest entities. And then, from what the books for Enron, the corporation, would say, is that they were a thriving company and all they were doing were making money because they were kind of putting all of the profits of all the companies onto Enron, but then putting all of the toxic pieces of their assets onto other companies, which allowed them to kind of start this cycle where quarter over quarter to maintain what looks like realistic trends for a business. Although to a much larger scale that Enron was doing it because they were, a giant company and not, some smaller company lying about their books. They had to continue to exponentially lie more and more on the books to make those trends seem real when in reality they were losing money and they weren't really a thriving business at all. This scheme allowed for them to publicly appear to be making billions of dollars when in fact they were bleeding money insanely fast. They would continue this cycle of lying to investors to pump up their stock, knowing that eventually the stock would collapse. My best guess as to what they thought they could do is that the CEO of Enron, as well as most of the C suites, thought that if they could pump up this stock to the point where it's worth an astronomical amount and they could do this balancing act to that point, they could pull out all of their money right before the stock crashes. Of course, this would actually start the stock crash and lose a lot of money. But if they were smart about where they did their pulling out of their money and like their timing, they could probably move to a country that doesn't extradite and live the rest of their life on just stolen money. After this was outed, Enron did have to file for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they did lose about $11 billion in investor money, pretty much in a snap. This would be the largest Chapter 11 bankruptcy to have been filed up to that date, but of course, there have been larger Chapter 11 bankruptcies since, but at that point, this was the biggest Chapter 11 bankruptcy ever filed. Then in 2004, they did emerge from these bankruptcy proceedings, and then they were then sued by all of their creditors and investors to try to get whatever money they could back. All of this was a high level overview of Enron. It definitely is not a comprehensive coverage. I'm not going to claim that I got every single piece of information here right. This was just my research that I did. But I really wanted to give this background to kind of talk about the reemergence of Enron in a different light when everyone kind of knows what the original Enron was. Also, knowing this, it made me even more curious as to why a company that would emerge from bankruptcy in 2004, get sued by their creditors, and in 2008 settle the final lawsuit and then disappear off the face of the planet, would then come back 16 years after the last time their name was even mentioned in public. Knowing this background information made the first video I saw where they asked, "Can we talk?" make a lot more sense. If they're a defunct company that lost billions of dollars of big and small time investor money and then disappeared off the face of the planet for 24 years, it would make a lot of sense to ask, "Can we talk?" But that doesn't really answer what this company actually is. Is it a satirical company or is it actually Enron in earnest trying to do a tongue in cheek revival for themselves as they try to, start a new business venture? I'll be completely honest and earnest with you guys here. I took the first few videos I saw from Enron at face value and believed that maybe this was an old company that was defunct trying to revive themselves. But when they announced the egg, I knew that this was a fake satire company. At least I did until I started doing a lot of research. The fact that it's satire being aside, I still had that nagging question of what is this company? For the first few days of very surface level searching, I couldn't really find anything that was definitive that would tell me what this company was and kind of what the reasoning behind starting up this company again could have. I knew that it was satire, but I still didn't really know why Who wanted this? Why is this something that's happening? Although their TikTok presence is very satirical, I started to wonder the more I watched if there was a possibility that this was a legitimate, group of investors trying to revive Enron, and they were using TikTok as a platform to provide a, satire, knowing that the user base of TikTok is young and they want to appear to be with the times and be able to be tongue in cheek about it so that a younger generation who maybe are a little bit more ignorant to the proceedings of Enron in its original form would maybe be a little bit more open to, understanding this company and seeing where they would go. You can kind of see this through like the Duolingo and KFC accounts. They're not trying in earnest to market a product. What they're trying to do is build a social currency with the users of TikTok through satire, kind of trying to make comedy that's in the lane of those users. So I don't think that the satire of the TikTok itself could really definitively tell me that this is 100% a satire and isn't a company trying to revive itself. With that being said, I kind of wanted to move into some other forms of media and just kind of see where else they were. So I started looking at their website and I want to take a look at this together. Of course, when you go to their website, the first thing you see is a promotional video for the egg, and you can click on it and you can interact with it and read more about the egg. But moving further down the webpage, it started to get more and more interesting to me. I will say, when watching the egg video, it had really good production quality, which did surprise me. And the rest of the website also kind of had me taken aback a little bit with how well written it is and how well organized it is. This website really was a very real looking website and didn't feel to me like something that someone would want to put this much effort into for like a dumb marketing campaign or some piece of satire. If you scroll down a little bit farther, you can find links to their social media, but you can also find a place where you can put in your email to get emailed about job opportunities, which is something that you see on a lot of websites that are legitimate in offering jobs to people. The career page makes it seem like there's actually jobs, like this is an actual company that's being built up and they're trying to build a workforce again. The career page even has a segment where they talk about benefits and they have pictures and testimonials from current employees and they talk about what it would be like to be an employee at Enron. You can also go to different pages to read about their energy services, meet the team of C-suites, and as well as buy merchandise. This website started feeling more and more real the more I dug into it. What really surprised me was the amount of auxiliary information that they had on this website that companies are legally required to give you if they're like a legitimate company trying to sell you goods or service. They had cookie settings, they had cookie and privacy notices, they had a terms of use and sale, they had a do not use my personal information opt out request. I couldn't find anything that was explicitly tongue or cheek. All of their privacy notices, their cookie settings, their data opt out requests seemed very legitimate. The wording was very legal and very realistic. And I found myself doubting whether or not this was a satire company the more I read into these pages. I mean, during the investigation of this video, I probably spent over an hour skimming through every single page I could find on this website and reading the privacy notices and cookie settings, trying to find something that would tell me that this is a satire. I mean, even Apple puts jokes and random stuff really deep down in their terms of service because they know nobody's ever going to get there. But I read through and skimmed a lot of these pages and I just couldn't find anything that didn't seem real to me. Side note, I just want to call out how much I love this animation. So after looking at the website, I was back to square one. The TikTok, obviously satire, but the website, I don't know. At this point, I started to really wonder in the back of my mind if this was some kind of insane long shot for a product that is so out there that it might just be possible, that it might just be a product that someone is trying to launch in earnest. Nuclear power is very much on the rise right now with the current energy crisis and the fact that AI and the training of AI is taking up so much energy that our grid can't support it. We have companies like Microsoft going to the government and asking to buy defunct nuclear power plants just so that they can create enough energy to continue training AI. Nuclear power is a very prevalent conversation happening right now. And the first company that could broach privatized, maybe even in your home nuclear energy would make a killing. They would be probably one of the most profitable companies for the next 15 years. Because if you could break through that barrier of finding a way to safely privatize nuclear energy, which I don't think we should try to do. It is a very dangerous thing when not controlled by experts. I think nuclear power is a very safe form of creating power, but it's definitely not something that should be privatized. But that being said, if this was the real Enron company, this could be a shot to make a lot of money and redeem themselves. Finally, I caved and I did what I should have done when I first got this question in my mind had I not been making a video, and I just Googled it. Here's the trademark for the logo bought in 2020. Here's another trademark filed buying all of the naming rights for Enron and its subsidiaries. And here is the final document I found. This is a satire company and it's owned by the College Company LLC, the same group of people that made Birds Aren't Real. This is 100% satire, but that brings me to the wider reason that I wanted to make this video. And that is, it's kind of unsettling to me to see a company that could do so much harm being revived as a joke. I understand that it's complete satire and it's most likely just to sell merchandise. This is where Birds Aren't Real makes their money, is selling merchandise, and it's owned by the same company. But with the rise of cryptocurrencies and money scams all over the place, I just can't help but have this like deep seated discomfort with satirical companies right now. If you sell your assets and your naming rights to try to repay the people that you've hurt, what is to stop a bad actor from purchasing the company? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just my own distrust that this could be done in earnest and satirical companies making fun of these could be real and could just be there for the comedy of it. But I don't know. It just makes me really uncomfortable for some reason. It might make me sound kind of crazy, but I just don't put it past anybody to do whatever they need to make a quick buck. And that includes taking defunct companies and making a satire just to make money. Not because they want to be funny, but because they want to make money. And I don't like the fact that that's a thing that can happen right now. In the end, I don't think that this is actually a huge deal, and by no means am I saying that satirical companies shouldn't be allowed to exist. I just think that we should take them with a grain of salt and make sure that we know who's behind them and what is the reasoning for them. I find them rife with the possibility of malicious usage and not just purely for satirical purposes. But on second thought, maybe it's a problem with how I view things. Maybe I have lost my ability to take things, especially comedic things, at face value. As the past few years of crypto scams and online casinos and people trying to make a dollar anywhere they can, no matter who they have to hurt in the process, broken my ability to look at comedy, at satire, and take it at face value. Is it really just a problem with me? Am I the reason that I'm uncomfortable with Enron? Have I broken my ability to see this kind of thing as satire and not some kind of elaborate long con rug pull to steal money from? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is what I would say if this was actually the end, but it's not. After scripting this whole video, putting all of my thoughts into it, and finally thinking that I had a good conclusion, I went back to the website one more time to get a couple of screenshots to be shown during the video. And instead of re-scripting this whole video because of one small thing I found, I'm just going to add an addendum to the end. This is a crypto scheme. It's a scam. This page was not on the website when I first started scripting this video. How did I know that this had to have been a crypto scam? I was on board with Enron at this point in making the video, and I thought that because it was owned by the college company, the people who made Birds Aren't Real, that this was legitimately just satire and there was nothing I had to worry about. And my first thought seeing this was that this is actually probably just another layer to the joke. My curiosity got the best of me, and when I clicked on the button to buy the cryptocurrency just to see if it was real, I got this statement. Enron is intended to function as an expression of support for and engagement with the relaunch of Enron, which represents First Amendment protected parody and performance art. Enron is not intended to be or to be the subject of an investment opportunity, investment contract, or security of any type in Enron Corporation or any other entity. References to Enron being fuel, power, energy, or other words or similar import are purely metaphorical and refer solely to motivational and inspirational energy. Enron is not intended to represent or be used in any physical, digital, or economic material or process. In one foul swoop, they've proven all of my suspicions correct. Maybe I was right to not trust this as being comedy when I first saw it. And maybe I've lost the ability to find anything being comedy ever again. But what do you do?